Wellness Show 205. Welcome to the Wellness Show, a podcast on health and wealth. I'm your host, Tyhson Banighen, the founder of the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy. Join me as we get the latest insight, tips, and strategies from wellness providers, coaches, and successful, heart-centered entrepreneurs, and much, much more. Welcome to the Wellness Show. And I'm excited. I'm always excited because I get to meet the most amazing people and talk about the most amazing subjects. And today we have the return visit with Natasha Rosewood. She is a spiritual medium, but she's much more than just that. She's an internationally acclaimed intuitive intelligent consultant, a workshop facilitator, a psychic, a spirit medium, and now she's in the midst of doing yet another book. So, Natasha, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tyson. It's wonderful to be here with you again.
Yes, it is. And today we have a very interesting topic. We're talking about the superpower of intuitive intelligence. Yes, that other part of our brain that for most of us, we need to wake up and pay attention to. So tell us a bit about why you came to this particular topic. Why is this your passion?
Well, as you know, Tyson, I have been doing psychic readings for probably longer than I care to admit, at least 40 years. And through all that time, I've learned that we all have this inner knowingness. It's not a gift or a special power. It's an inherent part of our consciousness. And I really want to be able to empower everybody and anybody to be able to listen to this inner voice, this knowingness that we have. Because I feel if we do listen to it, we can definitely save our lives. I've saved my life several times. And we can know, and we don't have to rely on other people's opinions or technology or people that we can't trust. We can listen to this inner voice that always tells us the truth. It never, ever lies. So I'm calling it intuitive intelligence because A, it is an intelligence, and B, I want to make it available to everybody on the planet.
Well, now you've got me really curious because you said one thing that caught my attention. It saved your life. So tell us more about that. I mean, if it's going to save your life, then obviously it's worth paying attention to.
Absolutely. Well, I can give you lots of examples, but one was I was driving actually on the Sunshine Coast in Seashot one day, and I was approaching a four-way intersection with traffic lights, and the traffic lights at my side turned to green, and there was this massive, great gravel truck that was approaching the other way, and he was indicating to go to his left, which would have been right across my path. And this little voice in my head said, don't turn. He's not going to turn. He's going to come straight through. So I thought, I'm just going to sit here and wait. Instead of getting schmucked and possibly killed, I thought I'll just wait. And sure enough, this truck came straight through. And I went, thank you, God, or whoever, for letting me know that. And then I turned and I was safe. Another time I was on a beach in Florida on holiday with a girlfriend and wanted to go for a swim, and I looked at the ocean. It looked nice and calm. Everybody was playing in there and swimming. And my girlfriend said, go in the ocean. I went, no, I don't think so. I think there are sharks in there. And she said, no, that was years ago. There aren't any more sharks. And if I looked at it, it looked, everything appeared normal and calm. But I said, no, I don't think I want to get my legs bitten off today. So I went up to the pool, did my 40 laps, came back down, and there was all a commotion on the beach. And sure enough, this poor little boy of 11 years old was just bathing in the shallow part of the water, got bitten on the back of a leg by a shark.
Wow.
And so, I said thank you to my intuition, because I've had many, many examples of that. And I'm sure other people have had, and they've listened, hopefully. And if they haven't, they probably got into trouble in some way, and hopefully they haven't died. But what I want to do is empower people to, despite the outside evidence, always listen to that voice.
Yeah. So for you, how does the intuition show up for you? Is it a gut feeling? Is it a hair on the back of your arm? Is it how does it show up for you?
Well, for me, and I think I'm a little bit different because I've developed my intuition into a broader psychic ability. Sometimes I feel like I get like an angel flying by my ear and whispering something in my ear. Sometimes it's gut feeling. Sometimes I actually experience like somebody's holding my arms and holding me back. Sometimes it's like recently, the bombing on London Bridge. My husband and I were in London and we were supposed to go up to London that night. And again, I always check in because London has had its fair share of attacks. And I always check in and I say, is it safe for us to go up? And I kind of got, no, I wouldn't go there if I were you. And sure enough, that was the night. And we would have been in that area as well. So again, it's a feeling of like, yeah, I don't think I really want to. It's not a good idea. For most people, it is a gut feeling. And some people will say to me, how do I know the difference between fear and intuition? And I say, if you're getting a lot of chitter chatter in your head, that's probably your ego literally messing with you, and that's your fear. But if it's somewhere else in your body, like you say, the goosebumps or the gut feeling or the feeling of dread, then you're getting, it's your spirit speaking to you through your body and saying, don't do it.
Yeah, I think that's very helpful because I think, as you said, most of us have these intuitions or aha gut feelings or here in the back of our necks or as indications that we're to pay attention, uh, not only for our safety, but for our life. But you've developed it so that you can use it almost in every situation, if I understand correctly.
I
So
do.
how did you get from for like were you born with this capacity, or was it something that you developed over time, or became to more to rely on it as you trusted it? Tell us a little bit like how do people get from where they start to where you are?
Okay. Well, I think we're all born with intuition. I think it is a sixth sense. It's a primal intelligence that we've brought forth from the Neanderthal times. If anything, we've been trained not to listen to it now. But for myself, and I feel when I've studied other people who are highly intuitive or psychic, they have often had very traumatic experiences, or they've lived in not unsafe environments where they've had to, like an animal in the jungle, they've always been on alert. So I think I developed mine to pay attention to what was going on around me. And I've just always been fascinated with the invisible. I've studied it, I've read it. As you know, I've read thousands and thousands of people over the years, and my study has really been not that I am psychic, but how do I know? How can I know this? So I've developed techniques so other people, if they're intuitive and they want to be more intuitive, or they want to trust it, or they want to develop into a psychic ability, I've got ways and exercises to do that. So I put on workshops, as you know. So it's like being able to draw. We're all born with, like, we can all draw stick men, but if we want to be artists, we can study and learn how to become Picasso-like.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. One of the things you said that that caught my attention was that a lot of it is trauma induced or near death experience. And yeah, I guess that's probably the tribe that I work with the most is those that have had those sorts of experience and are still pretty well overwhelmed by the experience. So it's harder for them to move on. But
Yes.
you are right, that does that need to be aware, or like the cowboy, sitting in the corner of the saloon with your back up against the wall because danger could be coming through the saloon door is one of the ways that we become psychic, but it's always from the fear factor. And as you would probably concur, we want to teach people to come from the joy or love factor, that this is brings us into joy. Not, we don't have to develop this ability because we're fearful of something that might happen to us. All of that may be what kicks it off in the beginning.
Yeah, and intuition really is a two-way street. It gives us access to so much more that is invisible that we can't see. And people who say they don't believe, I say, well, that's too bad because you're missing out on a lot of the magic. There's all this wonderful stuff out there that if you really trust that inner voice, which to me is the only voice you can trust in this age of Facebook and technology, sorry, Facebook, but where we're being watched and we get this cyber fraud going on. It's not just a crime now, it's an industry. So, the question is, who do you trust or what do you trust? And I always say, well, you can trust your intuition. Even in dealing with technology, I will often ask the question, is this safe? What is this? And I'll just pause and take a step back and say, no, I don't think I'm going to touch any buttons until I know what this is. And more often than not, I delete it, and I've been right to delete it. But the two-way street, a lot of people think of intuition as just receiving messages. But in my book that I'm writing now, I'm going to talk a lot about our thoughts. Our intuition is us receiving other people's thoughts very often, and thoughts are magnetic impulses. But we can also emit thoughts. We can also impact other situations. So, for example, if I have to make a decision about, I've got 2 job offers, and they're both good, they're both well paid. Which one do I take? So I suggest to clients when they're making a decision, use your imagination to envision job number 1. Go in there, work with the people, see yourself working in that environment, see how it feels. How does it feel in your body? Is it feeling exciting or just okay? Or are you getting that feeling of dread? Then go to situation number 2, envision yourself there and see how that feels. And people often will say, oh yeah, job number 2 is the one where I feel more comfortable, where it's exciting. And even if the evidence appears to be real, there's more money in job A and it's closer to home and I can get 4 weeks holiday instead of 3, your intuition won't lie to you. You'll be better off going with the more excited feeling. So it's really simple. Children can do this. Yeah.
I love that. I love that explanation. I mean, I would do that as a dowser, but I like the idea of allowing you, Lily, to teletransport, so to speak, into the future and experience it in your body, what it feels like. And then it's not, like a detached feeling from the pendulum or a percentage, but it's an actual embodied experience because you're actually living that reality in the future. Wow, that's really exciting. I never thought of it that way, and that's a powerful thing to do, is to make decisions that way. Wow. Yeah, thank you for that.
Well, another trick, I don't like to call it trick, but tool I like to offer my clients, say you have a relationship with somebody that's on the outs, or you've had a big fight, or there's a conflict, and maybe you don't know the reason for the conflict, or you want to heal it, but it's very testy. So what I suggest, again, using the imagination, is going into your favorite space. So it might be your bedroom or your beach or your mountaintop, and inviting that person, their higher self, get into an alpha state. So that's a relaxed state, as we know, like a meditation, and invite the higher self of that person to come and sit with you. And just ask the question, what can I do to make this right? How can we heal the situation? And then listen, see what the other person says. And without the other person physically knowing, you're going to impact their psyche so that the next time you meet with them, there'll be a little bridge. Your body language will be different when you walk into the situation. Maybe that person's told you, well, you insulted me, or you didn't invite me to your party last week, or whatever it was. You've got that information and a tool you can go in with and start to repair that relationship. And that works beautifully. And it even works with people who have passed on. So a lot of people, feel devastated because they had a fight with their partner before they died, or they didn't say goodbye to their parent. You can do the same thing, because the spirit of that person will come forth and you can have a lovely conversation. But the thing is to ask the question and then be still and listen and trust what you hear, and then work with that.
That's very interesting. I have one similar to that. It's the same technique, a little bit different. I call it star walking. I was phoned up by a friend and said, I want you to work with this First Nations girl. She's thinking of committing suicide. Well, I said, well, she's in Alberta and I'm here. How come we're going to do that? She said, oh, I know you can do this. So I thought about, okay, so she wants me to do it. She knows I can do it. So I was led to wait until at night. I then went to her when she was asleep, and it was like knocking on a door, and asking her higher self if I could have a conversation with her. And it felt like yes. So then I could have this conversation with her about what was going on and talk about why she had incarnated and how important it was for her to be able to bridge between those that have committed suicide and those that are in her tribe now that they're thinking about it, and that this tribe, this bridge position was so important and so sacred that she could read both sides of the fence and help heal on either side. And then I would have my friend who works in the school would report back to me what was happening as she made through the shifts. So that was a very powerful experience for me to understand that we can work between dimensions with other people with their permission and get incredible results. And it was like I was already in a room talking with her and having that experience, and that she was able to listen. So this is powerful.
It's very interesting, Tyhson, because people wonder at my ability to do phone readings. And I said, well, that's because you think you're just a body and I'm just a body, and I'm here in Kelowna and you're off in Australia. But really, what we've done is set intention for our spirits to meet. And so we don't really need a phone line, but, we're still in a belief system where we need a phone line. And I can hear the voice, and through the voice, I get so much of the frequency. And this is a thing, whether we're here or whether we've passed on or wherever we are in the universe, we can be anywhere very, very quickly. And all of us, not just a piece of us, all of us. And so what I want to do with these children, if I can get into schools and teach them power of their own inner voice, they can know that, there's all this magic available to them, that they can communicate with whoever they like you say, with permission, and know the answers, know a lot more answers than just getting on the phone or the text or the Google, and knowing the real answers, really feeling the truth of the situation. Because for me, that's what intuition is getting into the truth, seeing what's underneath the rug, and not just in the ego mind, but, out there.
I've always felt that when I read the Harry Potter series, that how unfortunate it was for children to be given this information and to think it is something other than their own potential as a human being. So I've always wanted to be able to inspire children that all those gifts that are talked about in Harry Potter are completely doable in the present body by learning how to do them. So I'm excited by you going into schools and helping children realize that we don't have to live in a fantasy world to have these superpowers. They're already available to us. And that with people, like with your assistance, they can develop them quite rapidly. And we know that these gifted children that are coming through them, and they can read books with their blindfolded, they can tell who's coming into the room, they can do all sorts of amazing things that most people can't. And all that is about is they're just precursors of what we could all do when we open up and allow that aspect to be part of what our belief systems can encompass. So I like the fact that you want to go into schools. I want to go with you. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Please do. I'll need the peak, I'll need the gang.
Yeah, I think
But
you can make little wizards.
you said something there, Tyhson. Sorry, but you
I
said
said, oh,
something there.
we can I just said we can make little wizards be real, right?
There you
We
go.
can,
We'll take the hats, and
yeah,
we call it magic. But what
yeah,
I love about this too is this does not affect anybody's spiritual beliefs, because I call it magic, but it's really physics. It's really about energy and understanding the laws of energy and understanding our consciousness and the power of our consciousness. And we haven't, in my estimation, humanity is still kind of in the Neanderthal stages almost of just being in the physical, like you say, the 3D, where it's what you see is what you get, but there's so much more out there. And when we understand the energy and the power of it and how it works and how we can work with it, then the understanding of it is paramount, then we can master it, and then we can really use it for our highest good.
yeah. One of the most amazing experiences for me was, to make a long story short, is I went to swim with the whales, and I was told to read a book on crystal skulls, and I thought, well, why am I doing that? I'm going to go be with the whales. And anyway, we do meditation every evening before we went with the whales to communicate with the whales that were coming, so they would meet us, because it was about a 6-hour journey offshore in the Silver Banks off of Honduras. So anyway, this crystal skull is still showing up in my meditation, and 2 days later, this lady brings this crystal skull up in her hands from the beach. I said, that crystal skull's been in my consciousness. And she said, well, of course it has. It was like about 4 feet away from your head when you were meditating. And I picked up the crystal skull and without thinking started talking to it. So I said, who are you? He says, oh, I'm an interdimensional being. I said, what are you doing in a crystal skull? He said, because it's a portal to your dimension. I said, don't you regret you don't have arms and legs? He says, no. He says, I have a caretaker. I want to go for a swim. I tell her, she takes me for a swim. I want to go see the whales. She takes me to see the whales. I said, how come I can talk with you? He says, because you're on the same frequency I am. I said, wow, does that mean that I can talk to whales and dolphins? He says, absolutely. Yes. They're on the same frequency too. And,
yes.
That all happened without even thinking about it. It wasn't a rational, hey, this is a crystal skull. What am I doing talking to it? It was just like spontaneously having this conversation that was just amazing. So this opens the door for interspecies communication.
Yes. Well, what I want to say about this book I'm doing on intuition, and I'll be doing also webinars, is it's so simple. It's kind of, children are much better at intuition than we are because they haven't been shut down yet. And we've been trained, God bless our parents, well-meaning, who told us, oh, it's just your imagination, or you don't know what you're talking about. We've been trained to quash our knowingness. And we can't, how can we know? How can we know that? You're making it up, that kind of thing. So what this did, it did a lot more damage than just shutting down our intuition, because our intuition is our inner voice. It's our individual, it's our essence. And because we've been shut down, we kind of split off from ourselves. So it's like we can't possibly know anything. So we don't make decisions. People come to me because they don't trust their inner voice. And I say, well, I throw it back at them and I say, oh, here's this one, which feels better for you? And they go, that one. I go, see, you do know. So I want to reawaken this intuition, more in adults as well. And anybody that's been told that they were wrong about being right, as I was many, many times growing up. How could I possibly know that? That was ridiculous. I didn't know what I was talking about. And people will ask me, Natasha, did you know you were psychic from a young child? And I go, no, I was always told I was wrong. So it took me a long time to get back to that place where it's like, oh, actually, no, I'm right. And it's not about being right, but it's about being able to trust what I'm feeling. And that's always going to be true for me and true for anybody else. So it's a reawakening, I would say.
Yes, it's a reawakening. I mean, when I was at school, you know, I was told don't daydream, but of course, daydreaming is part of that connection to that higher part of ourselves. So, you know, sitting in a desk and learning how to learn things is counterproductive to becoming intuitive. And so, I like you, I was always wondered, like, who put me on this planet? Makes no sense to me whatsoever. I don't understand the
Right.
rules of the game. You ask me how do I feel, and you don't want to know how I feel. You want me to give you a pat answer that
Right.
I'm okay when that's not what's going on. So why are you asking me that question? Or at
Yes.
school, you want me to know, you ask me what do I feel about this poem? And I tell you, and you say, oh, no, no, no. No, I want to have you to give the answer back to me that I told you you should interpret from that poem. So I found
Yes.
it a very confusing world that what people were saying and what they wanted in response were two different worlds. And I quite like the world I was in. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And it's so sad because I know people in their 60s who still don't know what they want to be when they grow up because they actually do know the information is inside, but they're not giving themselves permission because, oh, it's got to be wrong because I was always told that I was wrong about what I truly felt. So
Hmm.
it's that too. It's that empowerment to go, yes, you do know, you do know. And I do a thing in my workshops where people say, oh, I don't know. I think it's my imagination. I think it's my fear. And I'll say, no, you do know. If you keep saying that, what comes up for you? And then the answer starts spilling out. And it's like pulling this thing out of them. And it's all there right inside them. So we have all the information we need at any given time right inside. And if we don't, we can ask for it, which I frequently do. And I get the
Yeah, I
answers.
like that. So do you, I mean, you obviously are a coach and you obviously do the one-to-one and you do workshops as well, right? Where you teach people how to do this. You're in the midst of
I do.
writing a book about this. And I'm assuming
Yes,
that you're working towards an online course as well. Is that part
absolutely.
of your future? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
that sounds really exciting. So have you already written a book? Did I get an impression that you've written a book? Is that
I've
correct?
actually written I've actually written 4 books, Tyson. But the first one is called I Think I'm Psychic and You Can Be Too. And I'm telling my stories about growing up. The main line is when people ask me how I became psychic, I say, well, if my mother hadn't been psycho, I wouldn't be psychic. And
Wow,
it's sad
that's a
but
good
true.
one. I like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm teaching people, I'm telling my story, and how I developed and how I shut down and what, how I didn't have a mentor. So I made all the mistakes. I got psychic attacks. I opened up, I closed down. It was a very interesting journey, but I think having made all the mistakes I could possibly make, I've become a much better teacher because when clients or participants come to my workshops, I understand what they're telling me. But I've never been flummoxed by anything they've told me, and I've been able to explain what's going on and how they can do it safely. How can they ground and protect their parameters as well as other people's parameters. So the book is kind of
Well,
a foundation, if you like, for that workshop.
yeah. Well, I like that fact that you're telling your story through the book, and I obviously would love to read that book because it's probably very similar to my crazy life of how I had to know that I knew that I was psychic and I had to learn things like, no, people do not want to know what you are thinking about what they should do, even though you know, because it's really none of your business or their business. So you need to have some boundaries around your psychic abilities
Exactly.
so you don't freak people out by telling them what's about to
Exactly.
happen. Those sorts of things. But I love the idea of you being able to go into school. I mean, I wish somebody had who could understand this weird kid who I was, could take me aside and say, hey, kid, you're okay. I mean, you're weird, like you're totally weird, kid, but you're okay. Just be who you are. And I think if somebody could touch children on the shoulder and let them know that they are just truly magnificent the way they are, we don't care what
Yeah.
gender they feel that they are or whether they think they're smart or the society thinks they're dumb. they're just uniquely them, that will allow them to come full bore on, so to speak, and let their psychic abilities flow through them, and we'll have such a more peaceful, benevolent planet to live on. So I like that. And maybe
And you
that's
said
part of, sorry, go ahead.
well, you mentioned your weirdness. And I always like to say, you know, if you had been a child, if you've been 15-year-old, I would have said to you, Tyhson, that weirdness that's your speciality. That's your gift. So we just got to figure out what's individual about you. How can then we then turn it into a gift and make it work for you? So like I say, you know, my mother was psycho, but she really helped me become who I am. So now I call her my upside down angel. And so many people have gifts that they think, oh, they're weird, but actually they turn out to be the greatest part of themselves. I mean, you know, look at Stephen Hawking. I just think he was so amazing. He, not just as a physicist, but, you know, he was such an inspiration to persevere through his physical limitations. He didn't buy into those limitations. He said, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And he didn't let anything really get in the way of that. So that was you could say that was his speciality.
Yes. I look at a world where we don't have to learn through struggle, or we don't have to learn through sacrifice, or we don't have to learn through trials and tribulations, whether it's, you know, a psycho mom or, you know, ALS or whatever, that we can allow ourselves to show up on planet Earth and just be weird and wonderful or brilliant and fantastic, however way you want to interpret that, and get to play and stop feeling that we need to be judged or to judge others. I know that that's an idealistic dream and vision, but part of that for me is creating the Rainbow Children's Network. I've had so many calls from parents about, oh, my son Johnny can remember an incarnation with Jesus and I don't know what to do about it, or things like that. And to say, well, that's normal. It's not very unusual. And the reason he's having dreams and nightmares is because he wants to communicate things and he doesn't know who he can communicate that to in a safe way. So if we could create a safe world for these, you know, new rainbow children to feel that they're loved and appreciated, not diagnosed with and, you know, and given a prescription of Ritalin or whatever latest drug or psychiatric interpretation of who they are, because that's like imprisoning them. So anyway, this is one of my passions of what I feel called to do, and is to help people understand these unique children and the gifts that they bring, that they're really the forerunners of what all of humanity will be able to experience as they come out of the womb. We will all have those gifts of uniqueness.
Yes, and I don't think a loving, creative universe wants us to learn through pain, and pain itself is resistance, right? It's resistance to what is. And the universe wants us to flow with sparks of the divine, and the universe wants to flow through us and create. And they don't want us to stop or hide under the covers or commit suicide or go and take drugs or anything like that. They want us to create. And we've all been given gifts and challenges to create. And the way I talk about intuition in the book is the messages come to all of us. First, it's a whisper. And then if we ignore the whisper, it's a 2x4 over the head. And then if we ignore the 2x4, then we get into the train wreck. And, you know, the reason I'm so passionate about writing this book is I look at humanity and I'm going, we're already in the train wreck, you know, with the climate. We haven't listened to the messages that we've been getting about the environment, each other. We're still fighting wars. Like, how much longer are we going to do this same pattern over and over and over again and not move forward? So I think there are a lot of people out there who kind of know this, like you say, want to be able to express it, but maybe feel a little bit reticent about being completely open with it. I have a lot of closet clients who come to me and say, Natasha, don't tell my husband I've come to see you, which just tells me where a lot of people are still at. They're still in the psychic closet. But if I call it intuition, it's okay. I don't know what the difference is really, because there is quite a big difference, but it's just the perception of the word and what it means to people. Intuition's okay. Psychic is like, ooh, that's a bit woo-woo for me. So I just stick to intuition, and it's okay. And we've all got it.
Well, interesting perspective then. And yeah, I don't know what to say about that other than that's just who we are. It's who we always have been. And it seems amazing that we even have to be helping people understand this, because it's now for us second nature, and we would like it to be second nature for everybody. I just can't imagine going through my day without my guidance or intuition. I mean, it's crazy enough as it is, trying to figure out, where to put one's energy and do things, and to remember to ask before one does, to take that moment to go inward, to be still and to know and to receive guidance. Even for us that have been doing this for a long time, there's so much to learn about this, because we're so programmed to operate in the world through, I have to work hard in order to succeed, and I got to go to university in order to know, and all these perpetual lies that we're being fed, which aren't true at all. So yeah, it's this waking up sometimes is a little hard to do, but maybe if we can help each other wake up as a collective, as a group, we'll get there faster.
I wanted to mention, Tyhson, that I have written 10 tips to access your intuitive intelligence, and that helps us trust more and worry less. And if people are interested, they could go to my blog, natasharosewood.com. It's, I think I wrote it about 2 or 3 weeks ago, if they want it. But that's been the basis of a few of my talks. And people seem to really enjoy the reminders. I want to say the reminders. I'm not teaching them anything they don't already know. And like I said, it's reawakening the intuitive giant within that we all have.
The intuitive giant within. Well, why don't you send me over that link, and I'll put it into the show notes, so anybody who's listening to the show, this show was first broadcast on Facebook Live. It's then produced in the Academy YouTube channel, which I encourage people to subscribe to. It's really easy to share from the YouTube channel to your friends. Please join the channel, and then along with that comes the show notes. Then it goes out, the sound goes out as a podcast to 45 plus countries. So those show notes really help people make the connection to you and to have that article. And that's 10, what was that, 10? Do that again. What was that?
10 tips to access your intuitive intelligence. Trust more, worry less.
I like that. Okay. Well, any last moments, not moments, but any last things that you would like to tell everybody on this call?
Well, the other thing about going to the website, if they are interested, if they feel that they're intuitive and maybe they're actually psychic, some people are afraid of it, and you can buy the books through my website. And that first book has really helped a lot of people identify whether they're intuitive, whether they're psychic, if they want to develop it. It's really helped them a lot. So just to let them know that my website is there to support and empower everybody in one way or another.
Well, thank you, Natasha. It's great to talk to you again. I love the fact you're doing another book, and thank you for reminding me about your first book, because I'm going to enjoy that there's more than one crazy person on the planet at the same time as I was going through, and that there's somebody else that had similar experience. So until the next time, and I'm sure there will be a next time, because as you get ready to publish that book, we're going to have you back on so we can let everybody know about the book. So until next time, it was wonderful to dance with you and talk about psychic phenomena and ways in which you can use it creatively to make your life full of more joy and happiness and ease and grace. And who wants to struggle anyway, especially when you can just shut up and ask and receive the answer.
Exactly. You know it, Tyhson. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for showing up. All right. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
For quality online wellness products, courses, and services, visit our sponsors, thewellnessstore.ca and the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy located at thewellnessacademy.ca. To stay in touch, visit us at thewellnessshow.ca. And until next time, be healthy, wealthy, and wise.